Okay. All right. Well, welcome everyone to our Heat Smart FLX South program for today. A big change for small business. This is going to be a program focused on small businesses in our communities, as well as nonprofits, chatting about some different programs and financing options. Our Heat Smart FLX South program is a community-based heat pump campaign, but we also provide support in getting weatherization, energy efficiency, and other upgrades done to your small business. We serve the counties of Schuyler, Seneca, Yates, and Steuben, and we are one of 22 sister programs spread across New York State. We are based at the Cornell Cooperative Extension in Schuyler County, and work very closely and in support of your sister extensions in those various counties that we serve. We are funded by NYSERDA, New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, and we have a lot of backing from our local governments as well. So for today's presentation, we're going to unleash our presenters in just a moment, but just a couple quick things. Again, if you could keep yourself on mute unless you have any questions or you're presenting. We will be taking brief periods of time to do pause for 2 to 3 questions between each presenter. And then at the end, we'll open it up to any other questions that you folks have. So today I'm very proud to announce we have, first will be Jim Holahan from Taitem Engineering, chatting about the Green Jobs, Green New York Energy Study option for folks. We're also gonna be chatting next with Gary Pereira, who's visiting us from the USDA Rural Development and chatting about some programs and loan guarantees. And finally, to polish us off, Kevin Hunt from NYSERDA chatting about loan options. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Jim. He's a senior energy analyst with Taitem. He has an extensive background in conducting energy audits, and he has a lot of experience in measurement and verification to help with energy consulting and research for projects. He's provided a lot of outreach to commercial industrial facilities via NYSERDA's existing facilities and flex tech programs, as well as this other program we'll be chatting about. And he recently completed a year being an on-site manager for an international lumber company with NYSERDA's pilot program, which helped save over 10% of the company's annual electric usage in the first year. He also helps working as an on-site energy manager over at Ithaca Neighborhood Housing Services and conducts our energy audits. So Jim, without much ado, please take it away.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. Thanks, Erica, for the nice introduction. I've been an energy auditor for over 13 years. I've done energy audits from farms, small businesses, small commercial, large commercial buildings, industrial sites, multifamily buildings, probably in over 500 buildings in the last 13 years. So just want to talk a little, just a quick brief talk about the company I work for. It's Taitem Engineering. It's a small firm in Ithaca, New York. There's about 30 people now in the company. Taitem stands for Technology as If the Earth Matters, which I think is a great name. It really stands for what we do. We're a B Corp, flex tech contractor. Company also does, besides our energy work, we do design work. We do mechanical, plumbing, electrical design, as well as structural design. And we've been involved in a lot of the projects in Ithaca, the big buildings going up. We also do a lot of quality assurance work for NYSERDA and technical review work. Next. Today I'm going to talk about the Green Jobs, Green New York, the energy studies, and who can participate. If you're a small business, your office, manufacturer, coffee shop, if you're a nonprofit, such as a church, if you pay your utility bills to NYSEG, National Grid, or if you're a municipal electric customer, you can apply. That's really the first step, is to get the application in. And even if you're a renter, you can qualify for the study. Next. So just wanted to go through some of the details of what happens and who can apply. Looking at the comprehensive facility walkthrough. This is when the energy auditor gets there, looks at all the details in the building. Any way energy is used in the building, from refrigerators, lighting, would be very comprehensive. Spend a lot of time talking to the staff there to do an interview, to find out how the building is used, what hours it's used, the temperatures it's set at, the amount of people that use the building, is there a lot of computers used, just getting more details about the building. And before I go to a building, I like to do the utility bill analysis. I look at the energy bills to see if there's any strange spikes, anything going on. If maybe you're a seasonal business, and then you can really see the energy use going up during that time period. So it can tell a lot about the building even before I get to the building, so I know what to expect when I get there, and also to ask questions about the utility bills. Let's see. The comprehensive, let's see, the fuel natural. So we look at all the, as far as capital improvements, whether we look at the heating systems, we look at low cost potential, where we might just make a recommendation if you're on vacation to turn your hot water heater down, or maybe you can control the heating system better. But all this will be brought up in the report at the end. Next. Here is who is eligible, and it's really based on the amount of employees you have, not the size of the building. It could be a small building, it could be a much larger building, but it's really based on the amount of employees. And if you have one employee that's working full-time 5 days a week, then you have one employee at one full-time equivalent. If you have 5 employees that work 1 day a week, then you have one full-time equivalent. So that's really, so if you're say you're a performing arts center and there's really just one person there taking care of the building all week long, and there are other people that are just there for shows, the hours are added up and you can figure out the equivalency, full-time equivalent with the employees. It also has to do with the amount of energy spend. So this says if it's less than $100,000 in energy spend, that's in dollar value, not in the actual usage of the energy. And with nonprofits, there's no limits amount of full-time employees. And down below, you can see from the chart here what the cost would be if you have less than 10 people. Your share is $100, which is a great value for getting an energy study done. Next, please. The flow chart, the timeline. Day one, real important, get that application in. And on the application, it's really simple, just some basic questions to follow. What kind of audit are you looking for? Whether you're looking for a study, you're looking for a screening on your heating system and cooling systems. You get that in and get your utility bills together. NYSERDA responds quickly back to you to go over any details that might be missing or other information that's needed for the application. Then they send it off. They choose a contractor such as Taitem to do the energy audit. And then shortly after that, I will call the church or the small business and set up a convenient appointment and tell them to schedule a few hours. They'll probably be there. It usually takes approximately 2 to 3 hours. The day of the visit will be 2 to 3 hours on site. And during that time, I really like to have someone there that knows everything about the building. The facilities person really knows about how the heating is used, the temperature set points, if there's a BMS system, building management system in the to controls things, knows about that, get access to the roof, a ladder available, get into the basement, mechanical rooms, just full access to the building during the site day. When the report is completed, it's delivered to the customer. And the few days after that, I would call to schedule an appointment for a review of the report. And that's when you get a chance to ask all kinds of questions of why did I do this and why did I do that? And did I look at that? And did I crawl up in the attic and look for holes? And also just, why I use a certain insulation, and just to grill me, and I give you my answers based on my calculations. And then you have an opportunity a couple weeks later to get back in touch with you, and we go over it again as far as if you have additional questions. Next slide, please. Here's just an example of some of the building types. This is a church did an energy audit study over in Berkshire. Here's the Wayne County Cornell Cooperative Extension building in the middle. There's a There's the Foothills Performing Arts Center over in Oneonta. Give Me Coffee, where they roast the coffee, and health offices. This is a dentist's office in just in the area in Tompkins County here. Next slide, please. So as I was saying, when I get to the site, I go everywhere, down the basement and crawl up in spaces where no one's been for a long time. Go look at your heating systems, the controls, the pumps on the heating system, whether or not there's pipe insulation on the heating pipes, the domestic hot water pipes. Make sure there's insulation, which should be properly insulated. Look at lighting controls, whether you can benefit by photo sensors or motion sensors. Insulation, are there insulation in the wall? A lot of the old churches, they were built a long time ago, and there's just not insulation, or not enough insulation. And also some of the buildings in the 40s, they had a different way of building things, and there's the insulation is deteriorated, and can use some more insulation in the attics. Look at the temperature controls, see what the set points are, and usually can make some adjustments there and some recommendations to turn them down, or make sure they're being used properly. Air sealing up in the attic. Here's a picture of too many wires going into a box here, it looks like, and air coming up into the attic. And the building acts as a big chimney, so any hot air goes right up into the attic and right out through the vents. So we really like to look at air sealing before any insulation work that's done. We also look at refrigerators, windows, pumps, motors, any way energy is used in the building. Next slide, please. Other opportunities you have is to apply, part of your application, to apply for a clean heating and cooling screening. And by doing this, if there's an energy study done in conjunction with it, they use the information from that to base a study on. If that's not done, then they contact the facility, go to the facility if they need to, just to get what information they need to analyze whether you're looking for, maybe you want to change to air source heat pumps from your old oil furnace, or maybe you're thinking about geothermal. So it'll give you a cost, usage, and one of the benefits also is you get some dehumidification out of it. Next slide, please. So as I was saying, the screening will be done, and it's the same prerequisites. We're small businesses with 100 or fewer full-time employees, not-for-profits, it doesn't matter. These audits are free. And they'll go through in the reports, they'll come back and they'll have their energy use, how much your savings will be, what your cost for the installation of the systems, what your greenhouse gases are currently and what they will be. And they'll also give you financial information on breakdown on what the paybacks will be. So as I said, if your information is in there from the energy study, they'll use that. Otherwise, you should be contacted separately from a contractor. But you can apply for just easy by checking off the box in the application. Next slide, please. Here's a church, another colleague of mine. They did an energy audit and they were a very happy customer. And they looked at all the possible energy savings for them. Next slide. I wanted to go a little more depth on this. This is in the project report. So when you get the project summary, the energy study, there'll be this table. This is really the heart of the report. This is where you go to find out what was recommended. It'll list the measures that were evaluated, what was recommended, and you can see they're listed in payback. So the first one was controls, implement deeper setback, and this is for a church, and it did a recommendation of turning the heat back and further at night. It might have been from 65 at night to 63. I don't have the details in front of me, but it'll show you what the savings of natural gas would be for that. and what the cost would be. This is just, I put a nominal cost in for someone to change the control on the BMS system or on the program thermostat, and what the simple payback. Lighting, it'll give you what the savings will be, what the cost will be, and payback, and they're all based on. We have a book that we use, Means, which gives me a general idea what cost will be, or from prior energy audits. But this will give you a breakdown of all what the recommendations will be from the report, what we looked at, and what the actual savings will be. So if you look at the top, you can go through different categories and see what the savings will be. Also in the report, besides this great table, there'll be a detailed analysis and recommendation of what to do with these. So implement deeper setback. It'll make a general introduction of what that means, and then it'll tell you what actually to do. Change the thermostat from 65 degrees to 62 degrees for 8 hours per day. So it'll give you those breakdown. It'll tell you, replace the 2 T12 lamps in the hallway with 2 LED lamps. So it gives you actual breakdown. It'll give you your energy analysis, which you'll be able to see where those spikes are, if there are any, or if it's just a natural up and down flow through the year of energy usage. And also in the appendix, it'll give you the calculations, what I estimated you use for that lighting, that T12 fixture for energy per year, and what the savings would be, and what the usage will be after replacement, the cost replacement, and what the savings will be. So it's a really great tool, the report. It breaks down everything really well, and it's great for for planning purposes, moving ahead on projects. And just lastly here, what an energy study is compared to a regular site visit. So the energy study is more in depth. It takes longer to get done. We dig deeper into things. It's an ASHRAE level 1.1 plus level, which we go in, we do calculations to get our savings cost. And you get a detailed report at the end. And my company, Taitem, and the other companies that do the energy audits do not do the installation work. We're just consultants, so we're a third party that comes in and does the audit. Regular site visits for Heat Smart, they're also really good site visits where they come in, the contractor will look at your heating, evaluate your installation, they'll make recommendations. You'll get a report back a lot quicker than the detailed study, but the contractor also does the installations typically. There's no cost for site visit, where there is a cost for the Green Jobs, Green New York. So there is a little bit difference between the two, which you can take a look at before you make the decision. And next slide. So details how to apply. You can just contact them through the phone number or send an email. They'll send you an application. It's a quick process. And if you don't qualify, there is the FlexTech program, which you can find out more about through them, or going to the NYSERDA site, or contacting me. And FlexTech program is it's more involved. You can do it's a cost share program, 50-50 cost share for more in-depth studies. Thank you.
Awesome. And we will pull these up later, but this is Jim's contact information. We'll put this on slides that we will be sending out in the future. All right. Awesome. Okay. So with that, we'll jump right back for a second. I did want to take a pause. We have time to take 2 or 3 questions for Jim. And if there's any unanswered, we'll loop back at the end. Lindsay, do we have anything on your end in the chat?
No, nothing in the chat at this time.
Okay. Jim, I did have a question. In your experience, because I know you've been doing this for a while, are there typical findings you have from doing the study with folks that people are surprised about, or they didn't realize was going on in their business or nonprofit?
Typically, people set their thermostats and don't go back to them, even if they have a programmed thermostat, and they don't really keep up. They sort of set and go, and there's usually some adjustments that can be done there. The hot water that's provided to their from their hot water tank to these faucets. Sometimes it can be really hot and scalding, and you can reduce the temperature in that. Controls on lighting, just simple controls, which don't cost that much anymore. There's some really easy things to do that don't cost much, some simple measures which are pointed out.
That's great. And it sounds like you said, the odds about 2 to 3 hours. So that's like a good chunk of time to get things done, but not too much time to get back to work. So that sounds like a great fit. Awesome. Any other questions right now before we continue?
We have one from Steve Cooper in the chat. What's the cost of energy study for nonprofits? He may have joined a little bit late.
Hi, Steve. The cost for nonprofits it's evaluated the same way. It's based on full-time equivalent employees. So, and there is a chart. There was a chart in these slides, which are going to be available afterwards. But if there's 10 people or less, then nonprofit would be $100 for the audit. So it's the same type of chart. The difference with with nonprofits is there's no limit to amount of employees.
Awesome. Any other questions, Lindsay, in the chat?
Not in the chat. I actually have one. So I'm wondering, from the results of the energy study, do the contractors find that information useful in then making the further proposals for heat pumps?
Yes, and in the energy study that we can look at evaluate heat pumps also underneath the clean heating and cooling. The screenings give really great detail of what they project for the cost to be. They look at there's calculations done to based on building load of how much and utility bills to see how much energy was used for the current heating system, and then when they do a projection of putting in, so if you have a 70% efficiency furnace and you're putting in air source heat pump, then it might be efficiency might be 250% on the heat pump. So that's how they can judge it and figure out what the savings will be. So they're really valuable to them. They do their own calculations, but these could be valuable to them also.
Great. All right. So if people have other questions, Jim, we'll loop back at the end, but we'll continue. Awesome questions, everyone. Thank you so much. All right. So we're going to line up chatting about the USDA Rural Development program. And with us today, I'm very excited to bring in Gary Pereira. He is based over in Marseille, New York, just a hop, skip, and a jump. Gary is the energy coordinator there and also the business program specialist with the USDA's Rural Development State Agency. And as a business program specialist, he's worked extensively over the past 13 years. So lots of knowledge there in the Value Added Producer Grant Program and also with the Rural Energy for America program we're going to chat about very soon. In addition, he's responsible for all sorts of aspects of the agency's business, grants, loans, and loan guarantee programs for Central and Eastern New York State. And he holds an MBA from Binghamton University, which is not far from here, and a bachelor's in finance from SUNY. So Gary, I will let you go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Erica. I guess these first few slides we can kind of probably breeze over with our contact information, but besides myself, we also have Denise Quinn and Dave Skirmahorn, who are the, Denise is my counterpart and kind of handles the northern western region, and I kind of handle the southern and eastern region of the state, and Dave Skirmahorn's our program director. So you have everyone's information that pretty much handles these programs we're talking about today. But rural development on the next slide kind of gives you an idea of what we're doing. We also have, in addition to business programs, we also have housing and community facilities and utility programs as well. But here's our kind of like what we do here, what we're why we're here. On the next slide, I believe we have a map of the state. Nope. Continue on our piece. I'm trying to get my slides all in order, but and some of the pieces that we're looking to do as well as on top of renewable energy and energy efficiency type projects, we are also looking at promoting regional food systems, increasing access to broadband, and basically generating and retaining jobs throughout the rural areas. Next slide. Yep. Okay, so here we go. So this kind of gives you an idea of how the state's broken up at rural development. I work out of the Marcy office, but some of the offices you might be aware of would be our Canandaigua and Bath offices, maybe even Portland or Batavia, where depending on where you might be. But I'd imagine mainly Canandaigua or Bath. And this to give you an idea how the state's broken up, but the Rural Energy for America program is administered by our quote state office, which means that we have only a few specialists throughout the state that handle it. Denise and myself being the two as of this moment. So next slide. So this gives you an idea of all the other, so in the bio, it's kind of say the other programs that we handle. So here's pretty much a list of our business programs that we administer throughout the country. The main ones being the two underlined, and also the value-added program, which we're not going to talk about today, but it's another large program that we utilize in New York as well. And also the IRP and Rural Business Development Grant programs as well. So, and it gives you the acronyms on the side. So today we're going to be talking about REAP and BNI. So next slide. I think it kind of brings those two to the forefront. Yep. So the two programs that we're talking about today is going to be the REAP program and the BNI program. So I think we're going to head right into the details slides. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to spend most of our time here. So the Rural Energy for America program, it's a grant program that was authorized through the Farm Bill, I believe, in the early 2000s, and then it was re-upped every year, every Farm Bill since then. And since then, it's basically only gotten bigger, as it's a very popular program on both sides of the aisle. So those are always positives when it comes to government programs. It's been here for a while, and it continues to grow. And basically what it is, it's a program for ag producers, so your typical farmers and rural small businesses on a for-profit basis. So unfortunately, nonprofits are not eligible for this program, but for-profit small businesses are eligible, with eligible areas being areas of 50,000 people or less. And I think in the counties that we talked about, that we're talking about here, I don't think there's any area that has that would not qualify in the counties listed. I think you're only going to get into ineligible areas when you get to Rochester, Syracuse, or the Buffalo regions, the metro areas there. And basically what the purpose of the program is for farmers or small businesses, rural small businesses, to purchase and install renewable energy systems. So I got a couple listed over there, but your typical project in New York State is going to be solar. By far the most popular renewable energy system is solar in New York. And then also energy efficient improvements. And how our regulations define that is going to be the anything that's verified by an energy audit. So we talked the previous presentation by Taitem, basically showed, these are going to be your typical energy efficient recommendations, and any of those items would be eligible to apply for the REAP grant. And in fact, in order to apply to the program, you are required to have an energy audit or energy assessment completed on your business in order to apply as an energy efficiency project. The amount that you can apply for is going to be 25% of the total project cost, capped at $250,000 for energy efficient improvements and $500,000 for renewable energy systems. Your typical grant under the program, it's a program that's tailored to smaller projects. What that means is, your typical small scale solar project for a small business or small manufacturer, a lighting retrofit upgrade for a manufacturing or retail facility, a small scale geothermal project, a grain dryer replacement for a farm, a RO system install for a maple producer. These are going to be your typical grant programs. This program is the grant program is not tailored towards larger projects. So you see the maximum we can go is 500,000 for renewable energy systems. We rarely award projects of that size. And we encourage those kind of large scale projects, where you're looking at total project cost, $1 million and above, to really look at the next program we're going to talk about is loan guarantee. And that's where they should really focus their attentions on. The reason why is because they just don't score well. So anyways, the key to success is to talk to us if you have any questions. To review all the application materials is very important. And the deadlines for the program are going to be March 31st for all grant requests, so any kind of grant size. And then there's a special additional item for October 31st. So 20,000 or less grant requests have an additional deadline of October 31st, which gives them additional chances of getting selected for funding. So next slide. And I just want to also go over, we do also have loan guarantee programs, like I said, for larger scale projects. And basically what that is it's a loan guarantee program that we work with a lender. So your lender that's that wants to get into credit enhancement can come in for a guarantee on your project. Typically though, this is just for an FYI, we don't really do too many of these types of projects, except for large scale, typically community solar arrays. But I just want to let you guys know that this program is available. And then the next slide, we do have a generalized loan guarantee program as well through our business and industry loan guarantee program. So you guys, I'm not going to spend too much time here. So that is about it. So just one example, I guess. I think the next one's an example. So just one of the examples we did is Sheldrake Point Winery. They're on Lodi. Hope I'm saying it right. Lodi, New York.
Lodi.
Lodi. Sorry. They put in a 450 wells geothermal system for heating and air conditioning for their winery. The total project cost, I believe, came out to $283,000, and the grant award they were awarded was a $48,250 grant. And with this project, they were able to expected savings of 9,100 kilowatt hours of electricity and 2,600 gallons of propane as well. So we do have a link here. You can go check it out. Their website did a pretty good job outlining their project. We had a great time working with them. The nice thing about our program is that we don't get really too involved except for a paperwork standpoint. So we're kind of like NYSERDA with their incentive programs, where you don't really see NYSERDAs, but they're in the background funding these projects. So really, as a business, you're going to be working with your installer, or if you're getting an energy audit, the individual doing the actual audit is typically what you have a direct relationship with. And we're here typically by phone or by email as being the best the best way to reach us. So I think that pretty much is it for me. Do we want to go over some questions?
Yeah, let's bring it on. I have a bunch. Lindsay, are there any in the chat?
None in the chat. But I have one when you get done with your list.
My question, Gary, is this can new builds do this, gut rehabs, or is this just for pre-existing buildings just doing a retrofit?
So energy efficiency upgrades typically are going to be for existing. You got to have existing improvements. So in order to lighting upgrades, you can't do a new building for LEDs, but you can do an existing building with existing lighting. So you need to have historical energy usage, basically. The only time you can do a new build is if the existing structure is so inefficient that upgrading it would be cost prohibitive, and through an audit it would state that it's better to build a new one for energy savings versus replacement of the existing facility or upgrading of the existing facility. But to date, we haven't done any of those yet.
That makes sense. Lindsay, why don't we go back and forth? You go ahead if you have one.
Actually, I'm going to Jim Holahan asked, did you mention if non-for-profits are eligible? It was mentioned, but if you could repeat that again.
Sure. Unfortunately, nonprofits are not eligible for the program. Only rural for-profit small businesses and farms would be eligible.
Great. And then my question is, I saw geothermal mentioned as an applicable technology. What about cold climate air source heat pumps?
If it's a recommendation in an energy audit, it would be eligible, yes.
Very cool. So if someone's doing like the Green Jobs Green New York Energy Study with Taitem or another qualifying vetted contractor with that NYSERDA program, is there if someone just wanted to have like a site visit with one of our like heat smart contractors, for example, and they didn't want to do the more in depth, would just a simple site visit write up work, or what would you be looking for on your end?
Our regulations do state what we require. Typically, through a level 2 audit is the typical requirement that we'd want to have done.
Perfect. Okay, so they could chat with the contractor and see if they could get that level. Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you. All right. Are there any other questions in the chat for Gary at this point, Lindsay?
Actually, just following up on that. So I heard here that the national level 2 study is required. And I heard earlier from Jim that the energy study through Green Jobs Green New York is actually level 1. So is there a gap there? And what's the difference between the two?
Well, if you have a smaller project, an assessment can be done, you know, I would say to contact me to confirm that. But for example, I know through the ag energy audit through NYSERDA, they have the option to do a level, I believe it's, I hope I'm saying it right, a level 2 audit. But, you know, I believe to date, we've seen that, you know, the Taitem audits, and they've all been, you know, for our program, they met the requirement.
Great. All right, so we will hop back at the end if we have more questions for Gary, but we will keep heading on. Thank you, Gary, so much.
Thank you.
All right. So again, with our USDA Rural Development Program, Gary Pereira. All right, so we're going to bring out to polish us off. We're going to be chatting about small commercial financing with NYSERDA. And I'm very excited to bring on Kevin Hunt, who'll be chatting with us shortly. He is the Small Business and Not-for-Profit Program Project Manager. And he's worked for, after 15 years in commercial lending, joined on with NYSERDA back in 2000, where he managed the residential loan fund. Within 2 years, he made some headway, and Kevin left the financing to manage NYSERDA's real estate development project, the Saratoga Technology Plus Energy Park, or STEP for short, which is a knowledge-based community for entities involved in the clean energy environmental technologies. So while he was doing STEP in 2014, Kevin additionally took on managing, wow, you've been very busy, Kevin, took on managing the Small Business and Not-for-Profit Program to help leverage his banking experience, which we've been very much appreciating on our end. He joined the residential financing staff while continuing to manage both the small business and financing program with STEP. So Kevin, please take it away.
Thank you, Erica, and welcome everybody. Just to give you a very brief overview of where the small commercial financing program came from, it was actually through the legislative mandates from the Green Jobs Act of 2019 or 2009, and then the Power Act of 2011, and that act was amended in 2018 to allow for ground source heat pumps. Next slide, please. I guess, well, you know, while I'm talking about the legislation, a lot of what we can and can't do on the small commercial side, and this is the same on the residential side, is dictated by that legislation. Okay, so who's eligible for financing through us? If you're a business with 100 or fewer employees, then you're eligible. If you're a not-for-profit, you're eligible regardless of how big or how small you are. So, you know, if you're the YMCA and, you know, statewide, you've got 800 employees, you know, your site in Ithaca would still be eligible financing. Okay, next slide, please. So technologies that are eligible is basically anything that you really want to do. The technologies have to be identified in an audit. Now, for energy efficiency and renewable technologies, okay, the definition of audit is totally different. So if you're talking about an energy efficiency measures, and we'll get into what the audit actually is, although thanks Jim for stealing a little bit of my thunder there. As long as it's identified, it could be an eligible measure, and I qualify that because it's financing is going to be based on the payback of that measure. Okay, so for energy efficiency, okay, we need an ASHRAE level 1 or another utility audit. But if it's a renewable energy, such as solar, electric, or ground source heat pump, the audit itself is conducted and reviewed by program staff. It's not conducted by program staff, it's conducted by contractors and reviewed by program staff. So there really isn't any audit per se, like Jim was referring to earlier. Next slide, please. Okay, so what are the requirements for financing? Well, you need the energy audit. You also need to have the project payback will ultimately dictate what financing program you're eligible for. And we'll get into that a little bit later. We do not finance new construction or gut rehab projects, but if you've got an existing building and you need to do, some rehab work to it, or you just need to do improvements, that's not a problem. If you're looking for an on-bill recovery loan, you would apply through Barrett Capital. And if you want a participation loan, then you go to one of our participating lenders, or we can work with your bank to get them signed up. If your electric supplier is a municipal power source, you would only be eligible for a participation loan, not a non-bill recovery loan. That's because those that are supplied by a muni source do not pay into the NYSERDA's funding source. Okay, and next slide, please. Okay, so we do have two financing programs. The parameters of the program are different, but we still provide maximum 10-year term, maximum $50,000 in NYSERDA funding. And again, this is dictated by by legislation. And I think it's important to understand here that NYSERDA approves the technology. We do not approve the financing. Okay, we're not a bank. So again, going back to if you're going to put in a photovoltaic system or a ground source heat pump, okay, the program itself for ground source heat pumps would be the utility would approve the project. So if the project is approved, then the program, your project is eligible for financing. Okay, but we don't approve the loan. Okay, next slide. So the difference between for participation loan, we work in participation with a lender. Again, it could be one of our lenders or your own lender, where NYSERDA will fund up to 50% of the project cost, not to exceed $50,000, where the bank funds, the balance of the loan, at its interest rate, while we provide the rate of the Wall Street Journal prime rate plus 2%, which is fixed at closing. And today that would be a rate of 5.25%. The bank, though, if you've got a project that exceeds $100,000, say it's 110,000, NYSERDA can still only be in for 50, but the bank would be in for 60. So we're not limiting the bank to what they can fund, but we're limited to what we can fund. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so with participation loans, your loan will be underwritten by the lender of your choice. The loan may or may not be secured. Quite often the banks do require collateral. Generally, guarantees are required, and that would be either a personal or corporate guarantee. I do not believe that any of our lenders has yet done an unguaranteed loan. The project payback can't exceed 15 years. So if the project payback is between 10 and 15 years, then you're only eligible for a participation loan. Now, the project payback, we don't look at just the measure, the payback of a measure. For instance, windows have an exceedingly long payback, which are most likely going to exceed 15 years. But if you tack on lighting, which generally has a very short payback. So if you're doing lighting and windows, that payback very well could be under 15 years. Project would be eligible for financing. And this program is available statewide, regardless of whether or not who your supplier is, your energy supplier. Next slide, please. Okay, so the required documentation is going to differ depending on if it's energy efficiency or a renewable technology. If it's energy efficiency, simply provide us the energy audit. There's an energy measures worksheet that's very easy to fill out, and that's basically, it takes a look at and identifies the measures that you're going to install. It looks at the savings that comes from the audit and takes a look at the cost that comes from, a contractor, an estimate that you have from a contractor, and that spits out what the savings is going to be, or the payback will be. We need a detailed contractor's estimate. And when I say detailed, if you're going to be putting in a Utica boiler, just don't have the contractor put down Utica boiler, be Utica boiler, model number, blah, 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 92% efficiency. And provide us with the specification sheets or the cut sheets on those measures. If it's a PV system or a ground source heat pump, there's really nothing that you as a business person needs to provide. The contractor or the utility, in case of a ground source heat pump, will provide us with all required documentation. Okay, next slide. Now, this just kind of explains how a participation loan works. So again, this is a $100,000 project. NYSERDA is in for 50 at 5.25%. The lender's in for 50 at 6%. Okay, for maximum 10-year term, you pay $1,091 and change, and you pay that directly to the bank, and the bank will send our loan servicer Concord NYSERDA's share of the loan. So we really are behind the scenes on this. Okay, next slide. Gets into the on-bill recovery program. Now, with this program, the loan is repaid back by a charge on your utility bill. In order for that to happen, the meter has to be in the borrower's name. Okay. The project payback, can't exceed 10 years. So if you've got a project that with a payback of 9 years, your project would be eligible for both a participation loan and an on-bill recovery loan. That would be your choice. Okay, the loan payment, cannot exceed the monthly energy savings. So if you're going to, if your project will save you $500 a month, that's going to give you, $50,000 in improvements. To apply for a loan, you go through Barrett Capital, and they will underwrite your loan using NYSERDA's underwriting criteria. Okay, and let's see, I guess next slide then. Okay. These two items, both the title search and the declaration, these are required by the enabling legislation. We conduct a title search just to confirm ownership. And then once your loan closes, we file a declaration with the county clerk. All that does is provide notice to others that there is a loan attached to the meter. This is not a lien. The declaration says it's not a lien. And once the loan is repaid, we will file a satisfaction with the county. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, once your project is completed, NYSERDA will fund the on-bill recovery loan. Okay, so in the meantime, so between loan closing, and when I say loan closing in this instance, if you are taking out a bridge loan to fund the gap between project commencement and project completion, okay, you would either have to self-fund or get a loan generally through Barrett Capital, or you could get a bridge loan through your own bank. Then once the project is completed, okay, NYSERDA will come in with our money. Okay. One of the beauties of the on-bill recovery program is that the loan itself is transferable. Next slide, please. So all you really need to do is, if you're going to sell your real estate, just make any potential buyer know that there is or I should say aware that there's a loan attached to the meter. It's outlined in the loan agreement. You'd have to tell them, the amount of the loan, the monthly payment, what the benefits are of that. And then, as long as the buyer decides that they will take on the loan will be transferred automatically following the closing of your utility account and the opening of their utility account. There's no forms or anything else that are required here. This program is available only in the public utility program or public utility areas throughout the state. And I believe that Erica, where you are, the utility is NYSEG?
Yeah, for the most part. So.
Okay, thanks. Okay, next slide. This just provides the contact information for Barrett Capital. So you can give Barry Korn a call, both his office and cell phone numbers, drop him an email. He's pretty good about getting back to you. So let's go on to the next slide. And this talks a little bit about the energy audit. Primarily, if you get an energy audit through NYSERDA, and that could be the Green Jobs, Green New York energy study that Jim talked about earlier, a Flex Tech study. If you get a study through a utility, those are all going to be eligible. If you can hire a consultant that's outside of any of these programs, and as long as that study or the audit meets ASHRAE level 1 standards, you're going to be fine. Just to reiterate what the ASHRAE level 1 is, it's really just a very basic audit. It takes a very high level view of the building's operations. Okay, and the audit can be on a whole building or a single measure. Okay, that's totally up to you. And when, if you have Jim come in and do the audit, you don't have to do or implement everything that's required in that audit. You can pick and choose whatever you want to improve or whatever you want to finance. Yeah, the next slide just provides a general overview of the program activity today, and this is through this past June. Okay, so next slide. Okay, some of the local businesses that have participated in our program, Gullo, Heaton and Venuti, and Silver Thread Winery in Lodi, they all installed PV systems where the Zoological Society and K&S Car Wash up in Auburn, they implemented energy efficiency measures. Now with Silver Thread, that was project was in 2015 in a participation loan with Canandaigua National Bank, and they installed a PV system of about 28 kilowatts of power.
And that's for solar, right? Right, Kevin?
Correct. PV is photovoltaics, yes, solar. Okay, and then the next and final slide is just my contact information. So feel free to drop me a line and give me a call.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. Very fascinating. Lindsay, how are we looking in the chat line?
Nothing there currently. People can feel free to add.
Did you have any questions, Lindsay, on your part?
Erica, it's Jim. Can I add a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a little more clarification on ASHRAE level 1, ASHRAE level 2. Like Kevin said, it's more of an overview. If I do a level 1, I'll walk through a building. It won't take much time there. I'll say, okay, there's 10 fixtures that are at 60 watts per fixture. And my recommendation be to, take those T8s out and replace them with LEDs, and you're cutting your wattage in half. So I'll do a rough calculation of half, and it'll say, well, and your savings will be X based upon your usage at 10 hours per day. So it's a rough idea, and I might put a rough idea of say $5 per lamp or $10 per lamp. So it's that, and actually level 2 is where you provide calculations, more in-depth calculations. And the Green Jobs Green New York is what they defined as a level 1 plus. So it's an overview, but it actually has calculations involved. So for the REAP grants, that's why it works for them, because there is calculations there. There's savings, there's actual savings. And you get into looking at the fixtures where ballast will be taken into consideration, whether there's occupancy sensors. So you're really digging in deeper on level 2.
Awesome, very cool.
Hope that helps.
That is actually very helpful. I'm going to just go through the last 2 slides super quick, and then we'll have time for a quick hot other question or two. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. So just to let folks know, this is one out of our many webinars in our series. Our next one is going to be August 18th in the evening from 6:30 to 8 p.m. And we're going to be doing a 21st century heating and cooling. Not a good voice actor, sorry, that was my rendition. Heat pump 101 session. And then we'll have some other great case studies and heat pump water heater webinars to follow, where we'll showcase some of our other my contact information is the HeatSmart FLX South at cornell.edu. My number is at the extension office in Schuyler, and my extension is listed along with some other links that I'll share later. So I'm going to stop share screening. And yeah, so I think we are upon 1 o'clock. If people have to buzz off, I think my only last question is with a lot of the HeatSmart programs, we have weatherization contractors. We can actually work with Taitem or similar contracts in the area for the Green Jobs Green New York for our businesses, nonprofits. But if we have some of our contractors who are just coming in to look at doing heat pumps and they're doing all the different calculations, would those be able to be used if people want to look at the USDA REAP or the NYSERDA loans? Is there certain things that would be needed from our heat pump contractors on their end?
This is Gary from USDA. What I'll say is that we're going to need to have an independent audit done outside the contractor. Basically what we want to see, I think it was Jason who hit the nail on the head, is to see the calculations. We don't want to see a report from something that spits out for like a, what you would see typically for a home that says, replace your, inefficient appliances and, replace your heating system, and you're going to save an estimate of, this amount. We want to see the calculations. We want to see that it makes sense. And looking at the utility bills, especially, some of the things that we look for, we typically have a good idea of the payback and the savings for each type of improvement. But we've seen all kinds of audits. I mean, we've seen audits that have said that they were going to save more money than their utility bills showed. I mean, what we do, when we look at that, we say, well, there's a problem here. How are you going to save more than what you're already, utilizing, which has happened. Not saying from anyone in New York, so thankfully it's people from out of this area, but but what I would say is the NYSERDA audits, or the contractors that go through NYSERDA, there typically is no problem with us accepting those types of audits. So.
Yeah, this is Kevin. Boy, was it beginning of this year, last year, the ground source heat pump program was in both ground source and air source heat pumps were taken over by the utilities. So those are no longer NYSERDA programs, although we do still provide financing for them. So the contractor would really work directly with each utility, on a project. And what the utilities do is they provide incentive for the project to help buy down the cost. So as long as the utility approves the project, okay, then it would be eligible for financing. So, NYSERDA really doesn't require much of anything.
Okay, cool. But it sounds like from Gary's, you'd have to have something more in depth than just a New York State clean heat, make manual, J and such. Is that correct?
That's correct. And a business shouldn't also look at these kind of audits as like, well, this is just something I got to get done to get, to apply to Gary's program. They should really utilize it, for their own benefits, because you don't want to waste money on doing improvements that is going to pay itself back in 60 years, unless there's another reason for you to do it. Sometimes, there are good reasons people put in geothermal systems, even though the payback doesn't make any sense. They'll have other reasons for it. But, for us, we want to make sure that these businesses and farms have an idea of what's actually worth doing, what's not worth doing. Those are very important items. The other piece to make sure is, for our program especially, we need to make sure that the total project cost stated in the audit is what you're actually applying for. So, a lot of times you should work with not only the person doing the audit, but also work with people that you intend to do the install. Because, for example, if the audit says it's going to take $20,000 to do a project, and you come in and say it's going to be $40,000, we're going to have a problem, because it's like, well, there's some cost that we're not looking at here, so that must mean that the audit, so basically you kind of almost got to do that in parallel. And obviously every area is going to be different. An install on Long Island versus the Finger Lakes are going to be completely different for even the same type of project. So getting the installer and the auditor on the same page, kind of do that in parallel as well. So that's also important.
Well, thank you. I know we've gone over time, so thank you folks hanging in with us, and we will have this recorded if you aren't able to have finished with us. Does anyone else have any other questions at this point? All right, Kevin, I have one more. Do you have to work with a NYSERDA contractor to access the loans? That's ideally what we're hoping for, but just for folks to be aware.
No, for commercial projects, there are no NYSERDA contractors. It's not like the residential side.
Okay, cool. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so very much for joining us. Again, Jim coming from Taitem to represent, Gary from the USDA Rural Development, Rural Energy America program and the other developments, and then Kevin Hunt from NYSERDA's other programs. So this ends our official program. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.